Okay, so off camera, I got all the flaps completed. I got the male snap connector in the flaps. I stitched the flaps onto the back portion just right above the belt guide and the hook. And what I did was I put rivets in each corner because that's going to be a stress point. So now what I have to do, after I got all of the flaps sewed together and sewed onto the backs, it's time to get the fringe ready to go around it. And for your fringe, you have to figure out how much leather you're going to need to go around the bag. And what I did to figure that out was to measure around the bag where I wanted the leather fringe to start and stop, and that measured 20 inches. And then I measured how long I wanted the fringe to hang down. So that was 6.5 inches, I think. 7 inches. That was 7 inches. So I cut my piece of leather 20 inches long and 7 inches wide, and that's going to be my fringe. Now to cut the fringe, I had a fringe guide cutter that I got from Maker's Leather Company, but I couldn't really use it with my rotary tool. And my rotary tool's got a new got a blade in it that's pretty sharp. It's not brand new. I need to get another one, but Hobby Lobby sells them for 10 bucks a blade, so I got some ordered from Amazon, 10 of them for 10 bucks, so we'll see. So I couldn't really use this, so what I'm using is just a plain ruler. And I know the fringe needs to be 1/4 inch wide, so I'm taking my rotary cutter, holding my ruler down, and I'm cutting it like one fringe at a time, because that's the only way you can cut fringe, is one string at a time. When your blade starts getting dull, I'm finding that I'm having to really bear down on this leather to get the fringe cut. And then there are times when I have to get my scissors out to cut, and you'll see once I get this section finished. But this is how I cut my fringe, one at a time, one fringe at a time. Almost done, and I can check it and use my scissors to cut what I've missed, because I'm pretty sure I missed some spots. Okay, so let's see, are these cut apart? Because sometimes they're not cut apart. Like this one is not cut apart, so I have to use my scissors to cut it. This one I have to cut it apart. Oh, nope, it pulled apart. Nope, not that one. Because I want my fringe to be able to flow freely. That's the purpose of having some nice fringe, if it flops around pretty freely. And I have to come and cut the tops because it didn't go all the way through. So we're going to call that good for right now. Now this fringe is going to go facing the front. So here's the front. So the fringe is going to go around the front. So I got to get the center portion of my 20 inches. So I'm going to fold it, and I'm going to cut a little notch, and that will show my center. So this is going to go like this. So I've got to turn it over like this. Oh, first thing I got to do is put some tape on it. So I've got this double-sided tape, and I'm going to put it around on the right side of the front. Because that's where I'm going to stick the leather, because I need help holding it down, because I got to put the back on and then sew all three pieces together. And I've been lucky enough to do this on my domestic machine and not my other machine and not my sail rack. Okay, so now we're going to take the outside of the double stick tape off. Got to get it stuck down good first. Then we're going to peel it off, peel the backing off, like that. Now, here's our fringe. It's going to go like that. So, we're going to put right sides together, starting at the bottom. We're going to put and then we're going to work all the way around, placing our fringe on the edge of the front piece, and the double-sided tape will stick it down. Okay, there's one side. Now let's get the other side. Sticking it down. It sticks good too. You have to make sure your fringe don't get stuck in it. One thing about this double stick tape, if you stick it crooked, you can peel it off and re-stick the fabric. Okay, now that's done. Now you have to pile all your fringe in the middle, because when you start to sew it, you're going to sew it on these three sides. You don't want to sew your fringe. So there's the middle of the back. It's already been marked. So now we're going to take the back, starting with the middle at the bottom, and we're going to clip it all the way around so we can sew it. Now you see that there's a little piece of fringe trying to stick its little arm out. We don't want that. We want to keep it in. Okay, there's one side. Okay, let's do the other side, starting at the bottom center. Just clip it. Okay, now that's ready to go, and as I sew, I'll keep my finger over here so I can feel if any of the fringe is poking. I can poke it back under there as I sew. Now, I already, off camera, I took the lining pieces and sewed them together. And after I sew all of this together, I'm going to anchor my lining at the bottom here with some anchor stitches, and that's to keep the lining inside the bag once it's turned. Nothing I hate worse in any bag is a loose lining. When I take something out of the bag, the lining comes out with it. So all my bags will be anchored some way. The lining will be anchored. Okay, let's take this over to the machine and get her done. So I'm going to take you for a ride so you can watch me sew it. Okay. See if I can get you somewhere where you can see. I don't know if you can see from there. I think that might be too high. Let's see from here. Can you see? Sorry about that. I'm new at all of this, and I'm using my iPhone because the old GoPro I got just is not, just does not do it for me. Let's see. Okay, we're going to try that. Now I've got my walking foot on my backing. So I'm just going to start on one side and go a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now this is a domestic machine, so if this is too thick, anytime I have fabric or leather or something that's too thick for it, it'll start skipping stitches. So if I see I've got skip stitches, I'm going to have to hop over on the sail rack. Oh, I got to get my scissors. Get my nippers. Now, see that right there? That's a skip stitch because that leather is thick there. So I'm going to have to hop over on my sail rack and take care of those skip stitches because my domestic machine won't sew it. So I'm going to turn you around. And we're going to come over here on the sail rack. Get my light turned up. Get things out of the way. And get you to where you can see the needle and okay, first I want to take care of those skip stitches because that ain't good. I'm going to start back up here. And my dog Smokey's at it again. Okay. Okay, now let's go to this other corner. Should have just used this to begin with. Alrighty then. That was much better. Okay, see the corners where the skip stitches were. Just cut that off. But I wanted to see if my domestic would sew it, and it didn't because it was too thick. Okay. Okay, now the corners need to be trimmed so when we turn it, it'll lay properly. So let me get my scissors. I need my pinking shears. I need my pinking shears because we are going to turn, we're going to pink these corners to make them turn easier and lay better when they're turned. There's one. It's hard to cut between a layer of leather and 2 layers of vinyl. There we go. Okay, now back to the sewing machine. Now we're going to sew. We're going to anchor this lining we're going to anchor it on the bottom, lined up with the center. And all I'm doing is just putting a little couple of anchors just across the bottom. Just across the bottom. Okay, so I just put it from there to there, and that holds the lining to the actual bag. Looks like I might have got some fringe. Okay, now what we got to do, now we got to get this bag turned. And that's not an easy feat. I'm going to let you watch me turn it. Let's go back to the table. Okay, so now we got to turn this bag, but before I do, because I'm going to turn this top down, I'm going to put sticky double-sided tape to help hold it when I turn it down. I just noticed that it is uneven, so I may have to trim it. This part is uneven. When you're not working with an actual pattern, and this is my creation, so I created a half-wit pattern, and I'm always making changes. Okay, let's do this side. And okay, so now let's do the same thing on the lining. And all this is going to do is to help me hold it down when I turn it down and sew it. Okay, now the hard part is getting it turned. So we got to reach in and just start turning it. We got to turn it right side. And it is not easy to do when you have arthritic hands. It's not easy to do. You keep pulling and tugging and pushing and shoving until you get it turned. And you want to reach your hand in and get all the corners and the bottom poked out. And then you want to check all of your fringe and make sure you didn't get it sewed in. And I'm getting better at this the more I do. So now we're going to shove the lining down just a little bit while we get the top edges turned in. I'm going to undo peel off the backing. I'm going to start with the edges or the seams and fold them down, clip it so it'll stay. Do the other, so open up the seams, fold it down, clip it because I'm going to have to hammer them. So then we can fold the top down. And fold the top down on both sides. And that tape helps it to stay. So you see the top is folded down. I just eyeball it. Okay, now before we fold the top on the lining, we need to figure out where we're going to put. We need to put this female part of the magnetic snap on here. So we're going to need that. We're going to need a knife. We're going to need a pin. Okay, let's fold it over and see where it's going to go. And what I do is fold the flap over. Make sure that it is pretty much centered on the bag as much as it can be. And then I press it in, press the male portion in on the bag. Then when I raise it up, I got a spot that I can mark. Then I got to take the washer and lay that spot in the middle of the washer and mark where the legs go. Okay, now I gotta get a piece of that heavy stabilizer. And I need to mark it too. So the stabilizer got to get marked too. Now I need to take my knife, poke it through the stabilizer. Yeah, the hole's got to be big enough for these legs to go through. Okay. Now I gotta poke this one without making too big of a hole. Now, before I put the snap on there, I take Gorilla Glue and I put it inside to keep that slit I just cut in the vinyl from becoming more of a slit than it needs to be. Then I'm going to poke the legs in. Then I better make those cuts a little bigger. Okay. Then I'm going to put on the stabilizer. This helps give it a little bit more strength, because when you're pulling on the snap, it's a stress point. Okay, so that is on. Now we got to put the washer on. Okay, that's on. Now, this is the hard part, because I don't have the strength. I have to push those legs in over the washer. Oh, got one. Oh, that hurts. Let's see if I can use a scrap piece of leather here to help me. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay. Now what I need to do is take my hammer. You see how those, I don't know if you can see that, but you see how those legs are still sticking up? I gotta take my hammer and tap them down. Just takes a little tap. Tap, tap. Okay. Now you see how those legs are laying down a lot better. But I'm going to take a piece of duct tape. I'm going to put it over that whole thing just to keep the legs from trying to dig through the lining when the lining is up. Okay? If you ever got a store-bought purse or a factory-made purse, take it apart and look at it and you'll see this is how they're made. Okay, so now let's pull the lining up. Let's make sure that it is laying where we want it to lay in the bag. And I'm taking my hand in, spreading my fingers out and coming up to get the lining to lay where it should be. The corners came out very good. So now let's take these off. The backing on the sticky tape. And let's fold it down. Then we're ready to sew around the top. Okay, so that's there. We're going to open up the seams and turn it down. And clip it. Clip it on each side because that is really thick and I'm going to have to hammer that down to make it thinner. Let's go to the other side. Open up the seam. Turn it down about a 1/2 inch is what I'm doing. Matching up the side seams. And clipping it on either side. Okay, now let's get the rest of it turned down and clipped. Whoops, some of my earlier tape is coming out. Okay. Alrighty then. Okay, so we're going to go around the top and clip it. My tape got all bubbled up. Okay. Okay, now we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and sew around the top. And this one will be done. So here we go again. Better put the top back on the glue. I don't want to cut myself with this knife, so I'll put the top on that. Here we go. Now, I better get my hammer out. Here we go. We are going to, I wonder if I should just do it on the sail right. Do it on the sail right and be done with it. Thing is, because the sail right is not a free-on, I have to sew it like this. That is not a fun. It is not fun to do. I'm going to have to take these off. Let's take these off and see if I can hold it. Now that it's taped down, I'm going to start at the back first. See very much over there. I may have to bring you over to this side. Vinyl does stretch. I'm trying not to stretch it. Unfortunately, the lining doesn't stretch. The vinyl does. Okay. Gonna have to do some finagling. To get that to go line up. What I'm doing over here, you can't see, but I have a flathead screwdriver that I'm trying to feed in and trying to feed it and keep it straight. My hands just don't work very good anymore. Okay. Can you see inside? Okay, let's go back over to the table. Alrighty, so we got our fringe bag done. It has a clip if you want to clip it to your belt loop. It has, how big is that? I think that's like a 2-inch, yeah, 2.5 inch size belt can go through it. The fringe is fringy. So, we got these done. These are the 3 winners who won bags. Custom made. These are custom made, handmade leather and vinyl bags. The lining is waterproof canvas, so if it gets dirty, you can just take a cloth and wipe it out. So, these bags are my own creation. I created a little pattern. These are my pattern pieces. I've got the flap with where I'd like to have the snap, but I put it where I want it. I've got the stabilizer pattern piece. These are pattern, this is a pattern that I created. I've got the strap pattern piece that goes on the back. I'm waiting for feedback from the customers to let me know if I need to make this strap longer. I know some gun belts are 3 inches, some maybe even 4 inches, I'm not sure. But if I need to make that longer, they'll let me know. And then I have the main body of the bag, which this is for the body, front and back, and the lining, front and back. So these are the only pattern pieces I use. And if someone wanted something smaller, I can make it smaller. If they wanted it bigger, I can make it bigger. So this job is finished. Thank you very much. This is Prickly Pear Peggy at So Busy Mercantile. Bye.